Today we are joined by Steve Wick from Neuqua Valley High School in the Naperville area. So without further ado from me, Steve, please take it away.
All right. Well, hello again, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate when teachers take the opportunity to kind of experience some different things. So creativity is my foundation for the 4 C's. So this is me, jack of all trades, master of none. I'm very curious about a lot of things. I'm not saying that I never claimed to be an expert on any single thing. That's Twitter for me. You can reach me there, or you can reach me through my emails, which you can find on the blog and in the EdTech resources page that's right there. I will continue to have this session resources link up here. That will take you to this presentation, which will allow you then to control and look at anything that you want to as you go through this. All right, so the first parts I'm going to talk about here a little bit is just my mindset. I think it's important to understand why. I've talked for years about knowing your why before you get into the what. So I just got a couple of quick slides here with kind of some things that have kind of become my why as a teacher and a learner. I think the two things kind of go hand in hand for me and with my students. So one of the first things that I always think about is if I'm designing an activity that's going to be student-centered or teacher-led, I always want some pieces in there that connect to the 4 C's of collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. Those are big things for me to do with my students, and they're important things for me to do. A lot of times when I'm doing some face-to-face PD with teachers here too, probably not going to do the best job with those 4 C's today, just because we're getting through this, but I'm always happy to collaborate, think critically, create, or do any of those kinds of things. I have the word collaboration in here twice. This is awesome. I'm not happy about my slide deck at all. That'll be fixed in the next set of people that have to see this here. It's supposed to be communication. I didn't even change that. So content is secondary to these skills. All right, maybe I should just stop now. Just kidding. I'm going to keep rolling. All right, getting students creating is the essential to the process of learning in our classroom. For us, for me and my students, the other 4 C's build off of creativity. I used to start with collaboration. That used to be kind of the big thing, but especially this year, my kids aren't very good at collaborating. So if I can get them starting doing something and then add in that collaboration piece after, the communication piece and the sharing, those types of things, sometimes that works a little bit better. My high school kids have mastered divide and conquer, I think, when they were at home with COVID, because they didn't have a lot of chance to do real collaboration. And that's something that I still push pretty hard. I believe collaboration is super important, but it's really become creativity as the foundation these last couple of years for me. I also always try to remember that the best learning makes connections between people, places, and content. Never forget that connecting with students always matters, and connecting with things in our world. And I've seen all kinds of lists here that go into 7, 8, 12, 47 different C's, depending on what you're going to look at over the years. Now, I want to define creativity for you because I think a lot of times people are like, well, why would I want to do creativity? I don't teach art. I'm not going to bring art into my classroom, or I'm not going to do music or video creation or things like that. To me, it's not just connected to artistic expression. That's obviously a big thing. A lot of creative people are connected to the arts. But for me, when students create something as part of their learning experience, they're engaging in those critical thinking skills, those communication skills, and those collaboration. Hey, I got the right C's in this one, at least, as we continue to roll with this. A little bit more why, and then we'll get into some stuff here. Now, I used to be the other way with all this. I said, hey, you got to start with your why before you even do that. It's like a teacher would email me, hey, can you show me how to use Pear Deck? I'll be like, well, why do you want to use Pear Deck? That's what we would start with, because if they didn't have a good reason, I sometimes was like, well, maybe that's not where we want to start for those. I've learned a little bit sometimes that sometimes starting with a tech tool, okay, will help tremendously, where all of a sudden you get some ideas that you didn't have. Sometimes my kids take me in directions. I'll just put something out there for a day. Hey, we're going to try this. I don't know if it's going to work. Wakelet was a recent one that we tried, and the kids found some ways that I hadn't expected to kind of make that an engaging experience for us. So sometimes I think it's okay to just put a tool out there and see what happens. You don't have to necessarily have all the what's, the whys, and the hows behind that to see where you go. And I think that's a good experience for me as a teacher, and I think it's a good experience for the kids as students. And then student choice becomes a big part of that here too. You'll see in a lot of the activities that I share, they might have 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4 different ways. Although I try not to go beyond 3 different ways of trying to get something done. Every once in a while, I'll do a project that has like 4 of them here. And I didn't include that one. I'll have to find that one for you guys that I just did recently that the kids enjoyed a little bit that we'll get into. And that's from John Spencer. If you've never seen John Spencer's stuff, he has some great books and really some great stuff that he shares in both his blog and through social media. All right, we're getting close. I promise I'm going to show you some stuff here. So I think the best creative activities are part of the learning process and not always just saved as a summary or reflection of learning. So sometimes that's one of the things that I see. I'll go to these conferences or I'll talk to these other teachers and they taught all their content, and they've done this whole unit, they've lectured, they've done worksheets, they've done formative assessments, they've done all kinds of great things. I'm not trying to take anything away from that. And then they're like, all right, I'm going to do a summative assessment. That is them creating a poster or a video or something like that. And those obviously have their place, and those have some value. But I think we have a tendency to try to get through everything so quickly, kind of what I'm going to do today with this webinar, that we leave out those moments where we can do a correct little piece of creation as we're doing this. A lot of these creativity activities kind of go side by side. Maybe if I'm doing some notes, and instead of having them write stuff down or answer stuff in a Pear Deck, I'll be like, all right, as we're doing this, you're going to do this. I'll show you one of those here in just a little bit too. All right, so the next couple of slides, I'm just going to go through some of the tools that I use commonly to do creativity, and each one has a few sample activities connected to it. And if you're ever looking for more, I have more activities, new and old, that we can go into. So I still think paper, which is why I start with this, can be a valuable tool, whether you're using a computer and you have that paper off to the side, or you've put all your devices away and you're just rolling with the paper. So let me show you this sample sketch activity I do. This is one where we put our Chromebooks away. We are a one-to-one Chromebook school. And I'll just walk you guys through this here. You guys should be able to click on all these. If any of the links don't work, I'll go back and double check them, because I thought I checked everything, and obviously I did not before. So this would be a vocabulary intro for me, the Pictionary quiz. And I just clicked on this little link that's right down here in the sample sketch activity. So let me just walk you through kind of what we're doing right here. So for my students, and we'll do this digitally too, I've done this with Google AutoDraw and things like that, is an introduction to the vocabulary. What I want them to do is create some icons as kind of a Pictionary type quiz. We've all played Pictionary at least once in our lives, where somebody's drawing something and you're trying to figure out what it is. So what I'll have the kids do is, without working together initially, they'll each create, I'll give them a time limit. Usually it's about 30 minutes I give them. Get to as many of these words as I can, focus on the words you've never seen before, try to create an image that represents that definition. Then they exchange those pieces of paper. And what they try to do is, okay, can I figure out from the list what they represent here? And it leads to some great conversations, and the kids remember some things. Like a lot of times I'll be like, wait, they're excited because they're like, Mr. Wick, you can't tell what that is. I'm like, I have no idea what word you represent by that. Then they'll explain to me, or they'll explain to the person sitting next to them, oh, that was the word community. And I did it because of this. And I'm like, I've never thought of looking at it that way, but that is a great way to look at it. So just paper and pencil is still a valuable tool in this world of one-to-one and digital tools and all those different types of things. All right, up next is probably the tool that I use the most for creating, because it really does three things for me. And I'll show you a couple different examples of those. Adobe Creative Cloud Express, which used to be known as Adobe Spark. I don't like the new name. It's way too long for me for those. But in this thing here, you can create basically graphics that they call posts, pages, which are really simple scrolling web pages. I'll show these to you. Videos, and then every time I look, they have thrown other tools on there that you can use with your creative things here. So let me just show you a couple of things that I've done with this, and I'll show you kind of a sample that puts it all together here too, for this one here. So this is a big activity on community ecology. So in this case here, we were going through, and this went in parallel to some notes, where we watched some of these different videos and talked through some things together. The kids were not necessarily standing on their own, just going through this for those. But we're looking at species interactions. And in this case right here, what we did is we worked through the whole thing as we went through it here. And then as they went through different parts, they had the opportunity to do some things, to do some different examples as they went through it. So we roll through here, and you can see they're filling some tables, and we're doing this kind of together and working through the Quizlet, some of the vocabulary and different types of things. And we're using Padlet to kind of pair that up for those types of pieces here. But ultimately, the end product from this became a link to a Adobe Spark, which is right here. These instructions are right here in the middle. And I haven't changed this one since we did this one earlier in the year when they changed it over for those types of things. In this case, I had them do a voiceover video. So I'm going to open this up. You guys probably won't be able to go into the Padlet because I didn't make this one public because it's my students' work, but I wanted to show you this here really quick and show you what some of the students did in this activity as a voiceover. I love Flipgrid and some of those other tools here, but the one nice thing about Adobe Spark and the videos that they have is that the kids can voice over without having to show their face, and it's super easy to do for those, and it's super clean and super clear. So I got a lot of stuff in here from the unit. So most of these were down here on the bottom. Here we go. So I don't know how well, again, playing videos in these might be a little bit rough, but I just wanted you guys to at least see what this looked like. If you can't hear it, I apologize fully. It looks like I got more than one started at the same time. Oh, here, this one's going over here too. So that's my student's voice. It's super easy. You just pop in some photos and you press record. And yep, sorry, there's no sound then yet on that one there. So, but my students' voices were actually talking there. Again, sharing my computer sound is on, but again, sometimes some of this stuff gets a little weird for those. That's why I don't usually do videos at all in those. National Park activity. So this was actually a summative assessment. So again, there's nothing wrong with those here at the end of the year where they had to design a web page. Again, I'm not going to go through that entire activity bit by bit, but I wanted to show you a sample of this that kind of puts all those pieces together. And then I'll show you one really nice resource for the Adobe Spark stuff. So this is actually my sample of this. Again, with the students sharing, a lot of that stuff is restricted within our district. So I don't share a lot of my students' work in the bigger picture outside of here. But basically, this is what Adobe Spark pages look like, including one of those voiceover videos. And this one you should be able to access at any different time. I won't push play on these. So there's some embedded YouTube videos, but you'll see here, this is my voice with an embedded over video here where I put in some images and I did the voiceover piece for Adobe Spark for those. And I'll show you where there's tons of resources for you to get started on this if you've never used any of that. Sorry, Adobe Creative Cloud Express. I'm going with that Adobe Spark stuff. But you can kind of see here, this was a summative of the 5 units that we did in the first thing connected to a national park exploration. And the kids went through and they did different pieces real quickly connected to some of the cues that were in there. And then this is really where I would get started if you've never used Adobe Creative Cloud Express. I still want to say Adobe Spark all the time. So they have this whole setup here where they can actually walk you through step by step some of the different resources. And I'll drop you guys into Adobe Spark here in just a minute here too to show you how powerful this is. But you can basically go through and search for lessons by grade level and different pieces like that. And they will go through the process of putting this together based on those different Adobe education tools for the Creative Cloud Express and the different tools that are up here for those. So if you are going to go into Adobe Creative Cloud Express, it's free for educators. Your district does have to do a little setup if you've never done that. They have really great support on the website to kind of go through those steps to get your kids enrolled in it. They are SOPA compliant. Again, almost everything I share will be SOPA compliant today in Illinois if you're still dealing with that type of stuff here. But here's the basic front page for this. One of the coolest things about Adobe Creative Cloud Express is you can make your own templates that you can share with students, which I do all the time with Google Slides and stuff like that. Or you can use some of their pre-existing templates, which are just awesome. So this one here is basically going to be a poster template that allows you to go in, and there's going to be a whole bunch more of them off here on the side here, where I can start with that actual template. And it becomes just a matter of replacing different pieces of it. So if I wanted to replace that text here, there we go. I can replace that background image. And it's just a matter of click and drop to kind of go and doing these different pieces here. They got the text kind of hidden back behind here. So I have to edit the whole group here to get that there. I lost it. So anyway, you can go through and they have these for everything from the videos to the web pages to all different types of poster tools and stuff like that. And again, that all comes from, let me minimize a couple of these windows here, from that Express Exchange thing that's right here, Adobe Creative Cloud Express. And I forgot the Creative Cloud word in there. My presentation skills is this. Now, this is a tool that I'll admit that I have not used a ton. A couple of people that sit next to me in my office have used Canva. I really like Adobe because it lets me do the graphics, it lets me do the pages, and it lets me do the videos, which I use a lot, the voiceover videos and things like that. Canva is really powerful for graphics especially, and some of the different tools you can do for that. And again, the link here is to the teacher resources, which basically goes through some of the different things that you can do and the things you can pull together for those types of things. But again, like Adobe Creative Cloud Express, I don't have to be any kind of design expert, or my kids don't either. I can find any type of thing, whether it's a video or a presentation or different things like that, and basically get that idea. And I'm going to show you some different things for this here too. But let's say that I'm old and I want to create a Facebook post. I can do that with these different graphics. And it's going to work very similar to those, customize the template, and I'm able to go in and edit the text, the images, and everything. So you start with these incredible templates on all these. So it's a great way to get kids started creating without having to lose a bunch of time getting them started on it. Like, what are you going to do here? And it teaches kids some of those good design principles that I'm no expert on, but I know a lot of these companies that master graphic design and that's their purpose have a lot of ability to do that. So visual design for Canva. I know they have the video piece, which I haven't played with at all, that they added recently. And there's a ton of other pieces in there. Canva's a big one on my list to use more, because right now I still stick mainly with Adobe Creative Cloud Express. I also do a lot of stuff with drawings and slides. We're a Google district, so that's a huge thing for me. And I love all the different templates that are out there for drawings and slides. And I use drawings and slides quite a bit. Drawings way more than I used to years ago, because I love some of these pieces here. So I wanted to show you just a couple things I do. A lot of these are like reflection pieces, whether we do them right in the middle of the lesson, or sometimes as kind of an idea of, oh, what do you think you know about this? So one of the things that I'm not the original idea of, although I've recreated this a few times, is something called a meme generator. So this meme generator, you can make a copy of your own. This is obviously my piece right here. So I'm gonna just jump in here really quick and you'll see some of this happen if you're linked on this here, but I'll revert it back to the original one here. And basically off to the side here, we have a whole series of images using that open space that's over here. And I can create that image and put that down into the background. Gotta get it just in the right spot. My screen's being a little bit weird with sizes here because I think I'm just going to go a little bit. So normally I drag it all the way down here, but like I said, the bottom of my screen's been a little wonky today. You double click to change the text. So we're talking about creativity. And you can move that around. And you can do those pieces for those and change these ones here and get a quick reflection or a vocabulary term or just a thought or just a brain break. Have kids have some fun. Hey, how's your day going? You know, share something like that with us here. So let me back out of this so I don't leave the template here for those. But that's a meme generator, just a simple tool, and that was in Google Drawings. Also, I've started to put together, and a lot of these are not mine, some of them are, some social media templates and different tools like that. Books, magazines, I'm not going to go through all of these. This is something you can definitely go through a little bit later. But some of these ones right here, Matt Miller's done some great stuff with this. But like one of the things I like to do a lot, since we can't access Twitter here at schools, I like to have the kids actually compose some tweets. So this is just something that I would give them a copy of, okay? Through Google Classroom is how we do most of our distribution. I have instructions in here step by step on what to do. And ultimately what the kids are going to do is create a tweet. And I also have another one where they can create a tweet with a graphic. There's a couple different variations of this. And it's just giving the kids a little bit of time to think through something. And a lot of times I'll do this in the middle. Hey, we've talked about a few things now. What do you think? If you had to share something that was important that we learned today, rather than just have them do that in a quick response, which I do sometimes too through Google Classroom and Pear Deck and things like that. I actually want them to create something. One, it gives me a break from talking. Two, it gives them a break from listening. I can walk around and answer questions and check where they're at as they're doing some of these creative pieces. And I believe pretty strongly that a lot of times, the times that I do this, and then when I try to assess on this a little bit later, the things that we did that were connected to this, they seem to do better with overall. I'm not telling you that that's 100% true, but in my experience, getting them creating and taking those kind of, this is almost like a brain break to do one of these in the middle of a lesson or an activity or something like that. For those. The challenge is the first time you do it, it's going to take a lot longer than it will the second, third, or fourth time. So be ready to give yourself a little bit extra time the first time you do something like this. Then a lot of times, like if I was giving notes, in this case here, I was giving some notes on this whole idea of biocontrol and how it fails sometimes. Long story short, as I'm doing that, as I'm talking them through what happened here, this whole story of the day they dropped cats into Borneo, which is a true story, the kids are dragging and dropping these different graphics and attempting to start to organize what happened here. And then ultimately what I'll do is I'll show them my version and we'll start to make some fixes and things like that. So that is not a hard creation for them. They're not drawing anything or sketching anything. They're just using a template to create some type of sequence or some type of set of notes. So this is in place of just having them write down, here's a sequence of events. I want them to understand it and I want them to create something connected to it for those. And it gets the kids a little bit more actively engaged than I think sometimes those. And then I have one here that we did a little bit more recently for sustainable food. And this is one where I use Google Slides. So I tried to show a couple of different examples here in this past year. And the idea behind this one here is this is a video activity. We watch a lot of videos together in class teaching environmental earth science for those types of things. And the idea behind this here is as we get down into this here, as we get into this idea for exploring these YouTube videos, and this is something that if the kid's absent, they can do on their own, which is why I like doing stuff like this here too. But the basic idea behind this is we're gonna watch the video, then they have a prompt. As we're watching the video, if I'm showing it or if they're watching it on their own, they're working through this prompt. What's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they're going to create a slide. So ultimately, we end up with a presentation at the end of class, and sometimes I'll have them do this in groups, sometimes I'll have them do it individually. We end up with a presentation at the end of the class connected to these videos. And rather than just having kids answer questions about the videos or me pausing and constantly talking about it, sometimes them having to think about what should come from those pieces is a pretty powerful tool, I think, as we go through this. So hopefully that has some value. One of these four things here can do that. I have tons of other visual design things and things like that that I do all the time. If you're looking for something specific, now again, mine are all science, but at least I can give you an idea of what tools I would use or different things like that. All right, Pear Deck. So Pear Deck's a tool we use all the time. I'm just going to show you a sample activity here all the time. I love Pear Deck. You can use Pear Deck with PowerPoint or with Google Slides. We're a Google district, so I use it mostly with Google Slides. So that's the example you're going to see here was created as part of Google Slides. If you've never used Pear Deck before, long story short, it lets you put interactive features into a presentation. And what happens is the kids actually then can interact on their computer screens as you're presenting. And you can actually live in a little dashboard in the background, if you have two screens set up, be able to see some of those interactions and what they do. So if you've never used Pear Deck, I have tons of resources on this, but I just wanted to show you what it looked like here. So this is one that I just have kind of sitting out there, and it can be student paced too. Now, one of my favorite things about Pear Deck is I like these little pieces right at the beginning here is as they jump in. All right, so how are you guys feeling today? And I'll look at this. I get in my background, I get a bunch of different things here for this. So let's say that I get a lot of kids that are in the red. Okay, maybe I need to have a little conversation with what's going on today, and adjust my teaching accordingly. If everybody's in the green, we're ready to roll for those. So this is just basically goes through the idea of Pear Deck. I'm not going to do that. But what Pear Deck allows you to do is create a bunch of different slides. One of my favorite ones, and that's not going to be very well done here, is the drawing slides, where I can say, okay, we're going to talk about this or that, okay, and those types of things. And then the kids can go in and actually sketch out some pieces here. So I'm not even going to try to draw a real, there we go. I don't know what animal that is, and he's only got one eye. Again, the essence of those types of things. So there's different slides in here that you can kind of experiment and go through. You can actually set up a graphic behind here, okay, and those types of things. And if you don't want to use that, it has a text editor in here too. So I'm happy when I see cats on the internet, those types of things. So you have these abilities to go through and do that, and you can either control this as the teacher so that the kids are, let me get rid of this weird little critter here, so the kids are able to go through and do this on their own. And then in the background, I can see, and I'm not signed in as me right now to Pear Deck, but I can see all this stuff live as they're doing it, or I can go review it later as we're kind of doing the actual activity. So sometimes instead of having them pause and do something else, these things will go side by side for those. So Pear Deck's a great tool. Another great tool connected to it that I don't use, which is why I don't have it in here. We don't have a district one, but if you ever heard of Nearpod, Nearpod's another one that works really well in the same vein as Pear Deck. I like Nearpod a lot too. Our district just decided 5-6 years ago that Pear Deck was going to be the one that we paid for. And Nearpod's not quite as user-friendly if you're not paying for the full version of it. At least that's been my experience with it. If you've never seen people do stuff on Sketchnotes, there are so many different ways to do that and so many different tools for that. I'm not going to go through all these. I am going to go through one, and you're going to get to see me draw horribly here again here too. But this is AutoDraw, Chrome Canvas, Jamboard, and then again, paper again, and all those types of things. So if you've never seen AutoDraw, I'm hoping by now, I talked about AutoDraw for years. People have seen this, and I hope that they never get rid of it. This is one of Google's AI experiments. If you click on the fast how to, they'll tell you how to do that, but I just wanted to show you kind of how this will work here. So a lot of times it'll remember your last template. I'm glad that it didn't right here. So let's say we're talking about an ecosystem, and I want to start putting in, have my kids kind of reflect on those things. So similar to what we did at the beginning there with that idea of having them sketch stuff out on paper, I can do something very similar with his AutoDraw. Now I can change the colors. I'm keeping this pretty simple for those types of things. That's a tree. It's a very horrible looking tree, as you can probably tell. But if you didn't notice up here across the top, and I don't know how well you guys can see this on your screens, it gives me some sample things here of what it could be. Well, that's not what I wanted. So I go back to my tree. Well, lightning bolt's close, but not what I wanted either. Oh, there's a bit of a trick. I can use that one. There's another tree that I can use. Or even more, I like this tree right here. That looks like a lot like the tree that I wanted, and then maybe I want to put an animal in here. Now, again, you saw me draw animals. I'm doing this with my mouse. So it's a little bit harder to get done. Oh, I just saw the animal that I wanted. There we go. Let's go with a giraffe. Now I have a drawing that's got a giraffe and a tree that actually looks pretty professional. And once you start to put those in there, and you can free draw on this here too. Once you actually put those in there, you can move them around. You have the ability to change the colors. You can reshape them, resize them, give them all kinds of angles. So we'll create that whole idea of a sketch note, or sometimes I'll do this just like I showed that activity before with an actual quiz that the kids create. They just share it digitally instead. We would label this one as A. What is it? Oh, it's a tree. There we go. So it's kind of a cool tool to do, and it's super easy for kids to use, even kids that struggle to draw, which is one of the things that you can see that I do, which is why I like tools that do that. Chrome Canvas and Jamboard are two similar tools that have drawing tools. They don't do the auto draw features that this one does, but they basically allow you to sketch. If you've got a touch screen, which I don't have right now in front of me, those are great tools to use here too. So let me show you a sample sketch note activity real quick. And this is one that I use to introduce auto draw at the start of our year, because I know it's a tool we're going to use a bunch of times. So you go through and it basically gives you some basic things about sketch notes and those types of things and all of that. And then eventually it goes through how this piece whole works and all those kinds of things. So basically the first part about this is really simple. We just have them go through and draw some things connected to the environment that they think is going to be in our AP outline. I also teach AP Environmental Science. That's what this one was originally for. And they just make a sketch. And then we share them in the Padlet. I use Padlet a lot. Wakelet's another tool that I use quite a bit if you don't pay for Padlet. I think Padlet works a lot better if you pay for it. Although you can use the free version, it just involves a little bit of extra work on your end. All right, I know I'm talking. I haven't seen a lot of questions in there. So again, I can answer questions at the end here too. A couple of things. So storytelling is another big thing that I do in my class here. I probably use Google Slides to do a lot of my storytelling, but great stuff I've seen done with Buncee and Book Creator. Really incredible stuff with that at all grade levels across the way. For those, I just wanted to really focus on. I'm probably not going to go through all of these today, just in the essence of time, but these are things you can come back to a little bit later. But I wanted to show you at least this one here. So this is something connected to Google Applied Digital Skills called an If-Then Adventure Story. So Google Applied Digital Skills, if you've never had a chance to look at it, is basically video tutorials on how to create stuff. Almost every one of them involves creating something using different Google or sometimes not Google tools, to be honest, for those. And in this case here, I remember when I was a kid at least, and again, I don't know anybody here, we used to have books where you would read to a certain page and at the bottom would say, make a choice, open the door or walk away. And that would tell you to go to a different page. And every time you read the book, you could make different choices. And the story was a little different each time. I was always amazed that people were able to do that because it seemed awfully complicated to me as a kid when I read these books when I was younger. So this should be, provided I got the right link in here because I'm not feeling good about my links today. Yep. So this is one of the samples that I did that goes through that tutorial and shows you what this looks like. So the way this actually works is normally you have slides that just run in a sequence, right? You go slide to slide to slide. But when you actually do an if-then adventure story using Google Slides and that creative piece and telling a story, kind of works like this. So basically you got the story and then you've got choices here. And each of these choices, and I'll show you this here, I'm gonna have to back out of it a couple times, will take me to a different part of the story. So if I decide to join the fracking fluid, I end up on this page. So now if I go back to the beginning, and again, there's different ways to break this in. This was just a quick sample we did. If I decided this, it's a different page than that first page. So each of these is designed, if you look at the piece here, this one takes me to slide 7, and this one here takes me to slide 8, and that's just in the link that you put. So if you go and edit the link, it'll take you to that slide as you work your way through the different pieces that are here. So while you're making it a sequence, you kind of have that ability to do that. And this is huge problem solving for the students because you really have to storyboard it off to the side and on the time. And then one of the things that helps a lot too is you can use the different views, obviously in Google Slides, to get stuff where you want it and kind of see where you're going through the different pieces here. But the cool thing about the Google Applied Digital Skills curriculum, which is this page right here, is that it walks you through it step by step, exactly what to do and how to do it. And it's pretty nice. Most of my kids didn't use the pieces here, but they have samples and different things like that. But it was a nice backup piece. Buncee and Book Creator, I'm not going to spend time on right now, just in the essence of our time. But those are two other great tools if you have access to those. They both have free versions that work pretty well. Book Creator, some of the stuff that I really like, I've gotten free trials for it multiple times, and I use that in quite a bit. Probably my end of the year final project will connect to Book Creator over this, Apply Digital Skills, but Buncee is another one that can do a variety of things similar to what Adobe Spark and those do, but you can do it a little bit more in a storytelling type way, which is why I have that one here and over there. Little bonus thing right here too. I don't know if you've noticed this or not. Occasionally I'll put some little things in my, well, I guess I don't. I haven't used this slide deck in a while, but this should take you to an Easter egg, which it doesn't. So that's another failure by me. Again, jack of all trades, masters of none. Now, an important part of having kids create is having them share. And Rushton Hurley convinced me of this about 10 years ago. I first saw him speak, and this was one of the quotes that he had. If students are sharing their work with the world, they want it to be good. If they're just sharing it with you, they want it to be good enough. And I try to think about that in everything we do to make as much of the stuff that they share public, whether they're showing it to the person sitting next to them or we're printing something and doing a gallery walk, or we're doing a digital gallery walk with Padlet or Wakelet right here. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time in either one of these because they're not really about creating. A little Wakelet and Padlet, you can make some creative stuff in them too. So I will show those to you just a little bit, but I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that for those. So I don't know about you guys, but I get tired of the question from my kids, hey, is this enough? Did I do enough? No. Do you think you did enough? They hate that back from me. I'm like, they're like, I don't know, you tell me. So we have this back and forth argument for those. So by this time in the year, my kids have gotten pretty good at knowing that they're sharing their stuff, and you'll get some different pieces for those. So with Padlet here, what I love about Padlet is you can actually create some of these things right in it. Now, I'm not going to jump into the login here for those types of things, but you basically have the ability to create audio, short videos, add images and different things like that. You can create collections in both of these two different tools, and Wakelet has a Wakelet education one that allows you to go through and add a couple of different things here, and they give you some good ideas here for what it's going to look like and what you're doing in terms of sharing resources and all that. Wakelet's completely free. Padlet's free up to a certain point, and then you want to start getting into the idea that you might have to pay for it a little bit as you go forward. All right, now one last one. I promise we're going to come back to the brain breaks. We are. I don't know why I don't present on Google Arts and Culture more than I do, because it's probably the single greatest tool that I've ever used over the years that Google just keeps rolling more and more stuff into. So a lot of people, Google Arts and Culture, oh, I teach science. Why would I ever use Google Arts and Culture? Well, I use it quite a bit with my classes for a variety of things. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit here, but I wanted to just jump into this page. To be honest with you, we could spend the rest of the time in Google Arts and Culture and I'd be pretty happy. The front page changes all the time, so I always try to log in here a couple times a day. Like this one's new recently. Let the AI judge your drawings, because I'm not going to show this to you here, but it's going to be similar to Google Auto Draw, where it's going to attempt to it's going to tell me to draw. This morning it told me to draw a triangular chair, which I'm not even sure what that is. And I couldn't do it. It did not. It kept getting mad at me. So I have to play around that a little bit more. The first time I saw that was today. And then Google has a couple other things that do this here for those. But I just wanted to kind of show you here what this is. So there's this whole explore piece for these types of things, which goes through some really cool things here. And I love exploring color. Like sometimes before we're going to do an activity, or when we're talking about different things connected to those, we do time a lot in my class too. So we'll look at time and different things like that. They'll highlight some stuff up, but probably my favorite part, and this goes back to those brain breaks that I was talking about before, is this whole play section for Google Arts and Culture for those. There's all kinds of things here. There's some things that are crosswords and different things like that. There are puzzles, there are visual crosswords, okay? Some of these things, I don't know what this one is. I've not played this one, but here, can you hear color from sound? That's a new one that I hadn't seen before. The Blob Opera, if you've never played with that, I'm not gonna try to do anything with sound here for those. I wanna get down to one here in just a second for those. This paint with music one is fun. These are brain breaks. And I was just reading an article by Edutopia. I'm gonna pop this over on our screen real quick just so you guys can see it. I literally have not finished reading this article, which is why it's on my other screen right now. For Edutopia, I'll provide my screen once it's open all the way. There we go. For those that just came out the other day that I just discovered how we underestimate the importance of brain breaks. And I think those can be a great creative inspiration for exploring creativity. But I wanted to show you one that I use quite a bit with the students here. And we've done this with a variety of different things. And a lot of times I can make connections to this, but this is the art coloring book. And if you've never seen this, it gives you famous works of art. There's even a whole section here that we'd have to search into, go a little bit further for those. It's not loading all of them here, but it's basically paint by number. So there are no numbers, but you get to pick the palettes here. And we can go through and recreate famous works of art. And what's kind of cool about this is you can kind of see how yours looks different than theirs as you scroll through. For those, you can go back to the whole list here. There's a whole nother section here that's in the, you have to do a little bit of searching to go through here. Yes, I'm going to exit. It'll save that for me later, where I can go the NASA one, which is one of the ones I use when we watch a couple of our different NASA clips, is the Art Coloring Book NASA edition. And there's a puzzle for it here too. This one here lets you go through and recolor some famous photos connected to NASA. And you can see the original, and you can let them play that. Just kind of a fun little brain break and a way for kids to get creative with what they're doing and their backgrounds and things like that. And most of these can happen pretty quick for those. So it's practicing creativity and those types of things. The other two links in here, again, I talked about that color one here. I love this thing here where you can look for things in color. So if we're doing something that I think is focused to a specific color, all right, what things that have been done in the past that are connected to that kind of blue color in those. Now, the one thing I'll precaution on this, well, for the most part, most of the art is pretty moderate. Every once in a while, some nudity will flash in my art screen here. So I'm always a little careful here if there's some cherubs up, yeah, right down there in the bottom there for those. So a lot of times I'll direct them specifically to certain ones for those, but again, it's art for those types of things. I also love this piece. Sometimes when we're just talking about, all right, how can we connect this to what we're doing right now close to home? And what they'll have is you can search by an area or just have it let you access your piece here for those locations. I'm obviously not here in our location right now for those. And you can find different things that are available in here and different landmarks and things like that that you can do for those. And I haven't allowed Google Arts and Culture recently, so it's mad at me right now to get to my location because it thinks I'm in Paris right now. So I have to go and reset that up since the last time I was in here. But you do have the ability to go and do that. All right. So time's a creative thing. So I've talked for almost 40 minutes here with a few stumbles in between there. I will fix up this presentation a little bit as we go forward here. It's always fun to make some mistakes because I learned from them. And I did not probably check this one as much as I used to. So I wanted to show you what's left here, and then I'll be happy to answer questions and stick around as long as you need to for those. So obviously those couple of slides have a ton of nice stuff in there, but this is something I've been doing for years. If you need to reach out to me, there's that contact piece again there. And again, you can go to my website that's on the first slide, second slide, and go back to that. But I wanted to show you two other tools here and then just a few other quick things for those. So if I scratched a little bit of the things I'm using a lot right now, but if you wanted something that was a little bit more categorized or put together, I have two documents here. These I update all the time. These are kind of just general web posts that are connected to my website and my blog and things like that. So I have this one here, Creative Teacher and Student Voice Resources. It basically breaks them down by categories of drawing, videos, graphics, storytelling, interactive whiteboards, and audio. And these are some of the ones, well, I don't use all these all the time because that would get to be a little bit much for me and my students. These are ones that my PLN and my PLN and I have helped develop, look through over the years that are great tools that are used across my school and other schools like that. The second document is a little bit more of a generic creativity resource document. It's going to look a little bit the same off the top, but this one's just more of an alpha list. And there's a lot of overlap between the two. But again, some of my favorites are here. This one here is one that basically runs through, I don't know, there must be about 50 or 60 on here, maybe even a little bit more now as we kind of go through that, of just different tools with brief descriptions here. And again, that idea of sometimes starting with the tool to come up with a creative idea, I think is pretty powerful stuff. So I want you guys to have a little time to look at that. Again, if you are going forward with this, as I wrap this up, we do not just learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. You know, the learning process is super important all the time, but I also believe that reflection matters. So I talked a lot about doing this as part of the learning process. I also do a lot of these quick reflections for my students and things like that. If you are walking away from this and you're saying, oh, I learned this or that, do something with something and then reflect on what that did. Bring it to your students, let them try. Hey, I heard about this. I'm going to give it to you guys. I do that all the time with my kids. Sometimes they get mad. They're like, what are we trying today, Mr. Wick? I'm like, well, I saw this the other day. I'm recently looking at a couple of different quick tutorial sites like Tango, and I wanted my students to kind of try it without logging in just to see what they would create if they were trying to tell somebody how to do something. And it didn't go real well, but a couple of kids had some creative ideas that I need to look at before. I also have Design Matters. I did this years ago for a master's class that I was in. For those, this probably needs some updating for those, but there are some design tools there that are still pretty relevant. Some more design resources right here. And then again, full shout out. This is the Slides Carnival deck. I wanted to make sure that I gave them full credit. Probably my favorite place to get templates for some of the presentations that I do over the years. So this is the page that I'm going to leave you on with my contact information and all those. Hopefully you have links to all of this. I'm going to stop just talking at you now. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat, or we can just stare at each other, or I can stare at the screen because I can't see any of you right now and let you know. And again, I'm happy to have you reach out to me at any time. I also the idea is that you're spending a whole hour, so that I'm giving you about 17 minutes to explore on your own. Normally, if we were face-to-face, I'd be walking around talking to everybody. I obviously cannot do that very well here. But if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. I'd be happy to answer them, or send me a message through the email, or if you go back to that first slide, which I can go back to here. Provided I can get my slide deck to go where I want it to. Oh, I'm stuck. There we go. Or you can go to my EdTech resources page, which I didn't show you guys directly. I'll just pop that up real quick. And again, this is always in a state of update for those types of things. And then you can go to the About Me page, which has all my contact information and everything put together too. If you need anything, if there's anything I can ever do for you, it's all right here. Activity that I created.
Okay. While you're doing that, there is a question here. Are these websites good for elementary teachers? Knowing that you're a high school teacher, which ones would you recommend
That,
for elementary?
that is a great question. And most of these, I think, and again, I know with elementary, we get to, K3 versus 4 or 5, or if you're going up to 6 in your elementary for those. So for me, I would say there's a little bit of learning curve on on Adobe Creative Cloud Express, although I'd be surprised how some of our elementary teachers are using those in Canva. So if it was me, I think the most powerful ones that I would use are first going to probably be paper. Again, I think there's huge value in that. I really think some of these visual design things and drawings and slides that most kids have gotten pretty well done in. And probably my first tool that I would, well, these are designed for upper elementary, the Google Applied Digital Skills, all the way through middle school and high school. I think AutoDraw is probably the most fun tool to get your kids creating with, especially younger kids, because especially if you have touchscreens, this is so much easier to do with a touchscreen than it is with me for those. And again, the only one that I would stay away from 100% without actually vetting and sending them to specific spots, because we can know some of that can be kind of silly, or parents can get a little bit, that is the Google Arts and Culture. Well, I love that. I would only take them to specific pieces of it, like some of the different games and stuff like that that they can play, or the coloring books. You can actually push out certain ones to them, and there's even downloadable ones if you don't want to do the digital piece for those. But I would say if it was me and I wanted to create something with my elementary kids, you'll have the most fun with AutoDraw to start. It's super easy to use. You see there's not a lot of features over here that you have to deal with, for those, but you can kind of go through and play with the different pieces here and just let the kids click around. They'll figure it out fast, and they'll come up with ideas and different things you can do. And you can even add, I didn't show you everything on here, you can even add text if you want to get them typing or working on stuff like that. And then this is something that they can share and be able to create, because you can download them and you can share them via a link. And again, they have how-to stuff and different things like that. So again, I think AutoDraw would probably be one of those tools I would start with. Then maybe you can get into going a little bit further. Pear Deck's a great tool. For those, I didn't even show you guys Flashcard Factory, which is another tool that allows you to have the kids draw through a slide deck, basically. And it's kind of a fun little one. I don't think that we could do that, but that's something I have some resources on if you want to look at that a little bit later. So hopefully that was great. Again, AutoDraw would be my starting point for probably younger kids. Apply digital skills with a little bit of help, they can do all of that. Canva, Adobe Creative Cloud Express, maybe a few too many options. That's the only problem with those. They're not hard to use, but like you can do so much stuff with Adobe Creative Cloud and those things there that it gets a little bit overwhelming. Although if you look at their resources, they will list stuff for elementary, for middle, and for high school, all of them. My practical pieces, even with my high school kids, sometimes there's a few too many options in some of those. So that's why I use a lot of Google Slide stuff, a lot of Google Drawing stuff. And then we use AutoDraw weekly almost as a quick reflection tool, because it's so simple after you used it that first time. Hope that helped a little bit, Darlene.
Is AutoDraw, is that a Google extension?
No, so AutoDraw is just a website. So it's basically, the site is going to be autodraw.com.
Okay, gotcha.
And I didn't show this to you here, but they have a little tutorial at the beginning that walks you through it step by step. So if you have your kids look at that, they'll pick it up pretty far. So it's just autodraw.com. So it's not an extension or an add-on or anything like that. It just runs on the web. You can do it on any device. It doesn't have to be a Chromebook. It'll work on any web browser, any device that has a web browser, you can do AutoDraw in. Oh yeah, thanks for putting the link in, Matt. Matt put the link there too. Again, that's by far probably the most fun and easiest one to use with students. And especially when I show them how poorly I draw, when they see me try to draw stuff, and they're like, Mr. Wick, that doesn't look anything like a dog. I'm like, but it will. And we have fun with that. Chrome Canvas is a much more open-ended one. It doesn't have the AutoDraw features, but you basically got this blank wall that you can pick different pieces to kind of draw on, change the colors. And again, yeah, it looks very much the same. Jamboard also looks a lot like this if you're a Google person. The Jamboard piece is a little bit more involved with you sharing it with them and things like that. So I wouldn't start there, but actually, as Matt kind of said it, this is kind of a nice sequence here. Obviously move paper maybe back to the beginning with the paper pieces for those. But in terms of just having them sketch stuff here, both of these are quite a bit of fun. Like I said, then you can specifically take them to some of those Google Arts and Culture things instead of just bringing them to the site. You get the opportunity in here to link them directly to one of the coloring pieces if you want to. And you can create these collections and those types of limits for them. Those, like I said, I'm super curious. These guys are a ton of fun. If you want to just have kids play with music, so I'm super curious about this Guess the Line one. that I tried literally probably a half an hour before we met, and I couldn't do it. So I don't know how good this one is. I went through the tutorial, so I won't go through that again. So this one's going to ask me for a wide flower, and I got to collect that card. So let's see what I can kind of do here. So if I do a wide flower, I don't even know what that means, to be honest. Let's see what we got here. Oh, I am not good at drawing with my mouse. It's going to look more like a sun than a flower. I'm just trying to get, so as soon as I stop drawing, he's going to look. I can click scan if I want, or he'll try to do it. And then, yeah, this is what he kept doing to me before. So I don't know if it's just my horrible drawing skills, and he's timing me down here too. So that, again, I'm not thinking I feel really good about using this with the kids yet until I figure it out. But I can pick these different cards and kind of try to go through them and pick different things. Like I said, I failed miserably at the triangular thing before here too. A geometric T, I don't even know what that is. So there's tons of stuff here that you just got to play around with sometimes too. But I'm not sure this guess the line thing, which is brand. Maybe it's been here about a week. The last time I was in here was about a week ago. I hadn't seen this then. But there are some other tools in the drawing tools area that allow you to do that kind of fun game stuff too.
And also kind of coattailing, someone else in the webinar says, I'm a 6th grade teacher. I use AutoDraw and Google Forms in a Google form with my Foursquare assignments. Easy to put a link in a Google form. My Foursquare is where the last square you draw is a pic of the word being used and how it is used in the text. Short explanation, AutoDraw is very easy to use. My students love it.
Yeah, it's our favorite by far. And that's a great way of doing that. I'll a lot of times have them do that with vocabulary or something like that. Some of that first one I spent a little time explaining to you guys, where I'm like, create a couple sketches. Let's see if we can figure out what you're talking about. Or like that one there. All right, now you're drawing a picture of the word. I've always believed that if you jump back and forth between written and visual and written, stuff sticks a little bit better. Now, I don't have a ton of documented evidence on that. I haven't done a ton of research on that. That's just been my personal opinion over the years, is getting kids making that brain connection to either talking about it out loud or visualizing it are pretty powerful things.
Love the Easter egg activities.
Yeah, I mess with my kids a lot of times, and a lot of the activities that I give them, I'll hide. Like if you know what Rickrolling is. If you don't, I'm probably not going to explain it. I'll do stuff like that to them all the time too, where I'll just hide little things in there, and I don't tell them about it until after. And then now I have kids actively looking for that and getting mad at me if we do a kind of a student-based activity, and I haven't given them any Easter eggs to find. But I'm like, sometimes you don't need Easter eggs. You just need to get the work done. But they'll actually talk to me about that. Mr. There were no Easter eggs in this one, or I couldn't find one. So that's fun too. Just having fun with the kids and those kind of things. And that's creative for me, is putting those things in it. Like, I'm really disappointed that my little buncey guy who laid the egg is not linking to where it's supposed to, but I'll fix that as soon as we're done today. All right, well, thank you again, everybody. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so you guys can see my giant head here one last time for those types of things. But if there's anything you guys ever need, again, just an email or a tweet away. Thank you for being here.